Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. Our guest today is CPA extraordinaire Wendy Barlin. Wendy owns About Profit, an accounting and income tax firm that specializes in taking all the tedious financial chores off the shoulders of busy professionals so that they can focus on the areas where they excel. Helping people keep their hard-earned money through tax strategies and cash management plans is her special sauce. She is also a seasoned speaker and has made multiple appearances on local news channels and has had work featured in Forbes, Inc. magazine, U.S. News and World Report, and many more. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us.
You are most welcome. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and right before we got on, I was just telling Wendy, when I came into this idea of having a podcast, I really wanted to have an accountant on because I think it's one of those careers that we don't really glamorize that often. And so when I saw you reach out to me and I did a little bit of due diligence looking up who you are and what you're all about, I found you have this great speaking career where you go in and you talk to people. And I was like, speaking about accounting, I don't know. And so I pressed play on one of your videos and I was like, oh my God, she's great. Like your energy and everything behind it really made me want to listen to something that normally I wouldn't want to, if I'm being honest. If I'm being, as a humanities, not mathy, not, I don't know what you would call it. I don't know, just more of a verbal communication kind of person. The idea of like spreadsheets gives me hives. And and I was like, oh, wow, she seems to be able to make this very accessible. So a question that I like to start off asking everybody is, if you were at a dinner party and somebody came up to you and asked you, Wendy, what do you do? What would you say?
I help people pay less in taxes.
And what is their response to that normally?
Usually, yes, me. I want to pay less in taxes.
Is it hard to get clients?
Some people I can help and some people I can't help. We don't ever want to do anything illegal, right? Because the food in jail is very bad. And I love good food too much to go to jail.
Yeah, among other creature comforts. When you were a kid, what did you want to be?
Oh, I wanted to be a princess. And actually, this is a realistic story in that I wanted to be a Disney princess and I was waiting for Prince Charming on his white horse. But as I became a teenager, I learned he wasn't coming. And if he did come, he was disappointing. So I went to college and got a degree in accounting, which was not sexy and not fun. And for many years, I was mistaken as the secretary and not the accountant wherever I worked. But what it allowed me to do was always put a roof over my head and give me the confidence to know that I could say to any spouse or partner, get your keys and get out of my house. And I teach my children that you can pick a career and then make it work for you. So being an accountant was not my dream job, but I found a place within the world of accounting that does give me joy, which is this: teaching, helping business owners keep more of their hard-earned money gives me joy. And so putting numbers in spreadsheets, not so much. But if I couldn't be the princess and the knight in shining armor wasn't coming, then I'll take this.
I love that. One, because my daughter is in a very intense Frozen stage. And my God, the amount of princess costumes over she's just recently gotten into it. And there's Elsa costumes all over my house. And so I can definitely understand that princess want, need, desire, dream. Yeah. And the other thing, maybe a little bit more, I don't know, career oriented, if you will, is this idea that you went after something that you knew would provide some stability, right? And that is like when I think of accounting or anything really like in finance, I do think of like stability, like somebody who's in
financial
that like
security.
Sure. Yeah. And independence. But I think you hit on something really important, which is finding purpose within a maybe not so dreamy career. Oh my gosh, I have so many things I want to ask you. But going back, so once you started to pursue accounting, why did you end up choosing accounting in the first place? Were there any external factors from like parental figures or mentors or coaches or anything like that kind of steered you towards accounting? Or was it something different?
So for me, it was about pick a college degree where I'll always be able to work and I'll always be able to support myself in a comfortable manner. Mm-hmm. So I had this conversation a lot with my daughter, who's 16 and now starting to talk about what she wants to pursue. And by way of the highest paid professions, I cannot stand the sight of blood. So anything medical is a no. The legal world just seemed nasty. Every lawyer I'd ever come across was always angry. And I didn't really want to be a lawyer. So I left accounting because all the other professions that I thought I would love, psychology, teaching, social work, all the touching my heart jobs wouldn't pay me enough money that I could support a family by myself or take it around the world. And I looked and I said, I want to make money. I never want to be dependent on another person. And so that's why I chose accounting. And I have that conversation so often with my daughter about what she wants to do versus the lifestyle she wants for herself and trying to weigh those up. And even the people with the most jobs that I would think are the most miserable, like working in the bank, there are so many ways to turn that into a gratifying experience. And so I think a lot of it is not about what you do, but how you perceive it in your world. Because many of us don't have choices. There are a lot of people that have to do hard jobs, like people at the airport that are there at 3 a.m. telling me to take my shoes off and being yelled at. That is not a fun job, but I am sure that they can find some way to say to themselves, oh, I have a purpose. I'm doing something that somebody needs. And I think it's how we frame it that makes the difference.
100%. Where did that really strong desire for creating financial independence and stability stem from?
That's a great question. So my mother was a traditional stay-at-home mom, and my dad is business owner, and he wasn't very nice. He used to call her stupid. He used to insult her, and my mom had never worked a day in her life. She went straight from not finishing college to getting married and having kids. And I used to say to her when I was probably 12, let's just go. Why do you put up with this? And she'd say to me, we have nowhere to go. And I have 3 children. I have no choices. And I looked in the mirror and I said, by golly, I am going to have choices. I will not be you. And so as much as I love my mother, I said, I can't allow this to happen to me and to my kids.
Yeah. That's a big hurdle to come against when you're that young. And also for your mom, that's just a different generation also. Yep. I think a lot of women from her generation, you're from South Africa originally?
Yes, so, which is just a different culture too, in that people didn't talk about their problems. People didn't seek help. Something like therapy. We just grew up going, that was for crazy people. Yeah, it was a different time and a different culture. But I think sadly, many Americans today and people worldwide who are still in that position where they don't feel like they have anyone to turn to or any way out. And maybe they do and maybe they don't. But I think we can show the next generation how to make better and different choices.
Yeah. And going back into finding that kind of specific purpose within a job or career that maybe you're like, on. What advice would you give somebody if they're like, let's take the TSA agent, right? At the airport, 3 a.m., taking out people's shoes, smelly shoes, going by them. They're tired.
Mean to them.
People are mean to them and people really don't want to be going through security at the airport. What advice would you give that person if they're really struggling with finding joy in that?
I think this might sound silly, but the answer comes from within. It really does. I read a lot of books. I took classes, waiting for someone to tell me what to do, waiting for someone to show me the way. And I really found that the answer came within me, where I would stand up and go, okay, how am I going to make today better? How am I going to make today fun? What if I just make one person smile today? In the most difficult time of my life, where I was going through a divorce myself, I was left with $50,000 in credit card debt. My house was flooded. I couldn't live there. It was just one of those times in life where everything's bad. And I remember getting up in the morning and saying, I'm going to go to Walmart today and I'm going to make one person feel good. Just one person. I'm just going to make one person smile. And that made me smile because I helped one person. And one day it was the lady at the turnpike who took the money. It was like 15 years ago, lady at the turnpike who took the money as you got off the freeway. And I remember saying to her, thank you for coming and being here so early in the morning so I can make it to work on time. And all those little moments add up to big moments, right? And they come from inside. So what I found is no one's giving you the answer. No one's giving you the out. You have to find your own out. And for all of us, it's different.
Yeah. And so how did you recognize that making people feel good made you feel good?
It was actually one of the things I learned from Mary Kay. And it's crazy, right? You don't see a lot of Mary Kay around today, but I was involved in the Mary Kay business for a little while. And
can you pause for a second? For people who don't know, what is Mary Kay? Can you explain?
Yeah. So Mary Kay is makeup and face products that are sold from home on a multi-level marketing scheme. It's all legit. And Mary Kay herself was a woman whose goal was to give other women a way to make money, a way to make side money, or money to take care of themselves, or money to get away, whatever it was. And so many of her philosophies really stuck with me over time about make other people smile, just make one person smile and say something nice to them, because people don't say things anymore. Nobody says to you, oh, that's a pretty blouse. Or, oh, what a lovely color lipstick. Just one nice thing. And it made such a difference. And especially being an accountant, which, like you say, can be a very dry world, a man's world, where I was often assumed to be the coffee maker secretary. I was asked to put money in people's car meters and all kinds of crazy things. And so I had to find joy in what I did every day. And my focus became helping people and having people say thank you.
How did you deal with people assuming that you were, or asking you to do tasks that didn't align with your job? Because I'm just thinking, I was at a job once and she asked me to walk her dog. And I was like, that's not my job. Luckily, I love dogs. So I was like, sure. But yeah, sometimes they take advantage
right? Sometimes you just have to suck it up. But that's when it comes back to why am I here and what do I really want to accomplish? And I especially see that in the teenage generation right now with my daughter and her friends. They will quit a job if somebody even just looks at them sideways. Whereas I sucked up a lot because I had goals and dreams that I wanted to follow. And every day I would decide, is it worth it? Is it worth kicking up a fuss and walking away from this? Does it get me closer to my goal or further away from my goal? And I try and talk with my daughter about that because I think that this whole quitting generation and quiet quitting and everything else we've seen in the workplace is people walking away, but maybe not keeping their eye on what is the goal and what am I personally willing to suck up to get there. Never anything hurtful, never anything against the law, but the little things like walk the dog and make somebody coffee. At the end of the day, if I have to make somebody coffee or they want to assume I'm a secretary, does it hurt my feelings? Absolutely. But I have my goals in mind and they're more important.
Yeah. And just as a mom of a teenager who is in that kind of generation of quitting quickly and quiet quitting, where does it come from? Where did that whole mentality stem from? Did you see, I'm sure that I know that there are 1,000 articles about it, but just as a mom, did you see that progression kind of start?
Somewhat generational. And that if I think of my grandfather, he was horrified when he would hear that I would spend $30 on a manicure and pedicure because he walked 5 miles to school in the dirt. So I think a lot.
That's such a grandpa thing to say.
And he'd always, the first thing he'd say to me is, Wendy, are you saving for retirement? And I'd be like, Grandpa, I'm never going to retire. But I think it's a generational thing and our lives have got more and more comfortable over time. So in his generation, 100 years ago, life was harder than it was for me. And my daughter's life is easier than mine was. And so I think life has gotten easier a lot. And this has made people change their perspective. Whoever thought that being an influencer would be a career? When I went to school, like that was not on the checklist. It was teacher or accountant or doctor. Nowhere did it say internet influencer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about finding stability and finding purpose within creating your own stability. If someone's actually like interested in going into accounting or CPA, like FYI, that's a big task.
A long road.
Yeah. And I think you see around April, like tax season, it's actually really hard. It's not like they don't give it out just like candy.
Right.
So if someone is interested in accounting or like you, they're interested in that stable aspect of it.
Yeah.
What would you say is a great way to test it out? And B, what's the biggest misconception about accounting?
So I'll start with the first one because that's the one that always makes me laugh is the misconception. Sure. We are not all data processors who sit behind computers and put numbers into Excel spreadsheets every day.
That's exactly what I picture.
Yeah, there's some people who do that and they love it and God bless them because somebody's got to do that work. So if you are a number cruncher and you don't like talking to people and you're an introvert and you want to sit behind a computer and crunch numbers every day, then being an accountant is a great career choice. You will always find a job. It's a safe, stable, paid job. Go to college, get a degree in accounting or economics. It doesn't really matter what school it's from. I have not found that to be a barrier. As long as you go to college and get a degree in accounting or economics, those jobs are available to you. Then in the world of taxes and bookkeeping, the probably lesser earners are bookkeepers. They are integral to every business. And you can take a class in bookkeeping at a local college. You can learn to do QuickBooks, and you do not need to get a 4-year university degree to support yourself and your family doing bookkeeping for business owners or corporations. There are thousands of bookkeeping jobs available every single day, many of them remote and can be done from home. And that is an awesome career choice for so many people who are not college bound. Then in addition, if you are college bound, you have two choices. You can take the hard road, which is getting the CPA license, which is years of practical work, as well as taking the exam, which is not easy. But that's probably your bet to make the most money. With that license, I can make a lot of money if I choose to. And I have a lot of doors that will open because of that license. If that isn't quite as far as you want to go, I work with a lot of people who are enrolled agents. And those people do not have a CPA license, but they have to take a test with the IRS. And let me tell you, it's a hard test. But if you're a decent test taker and you can get through that test, you can file tax returns for people, which is also a great job that can be done from anywhere in the world. You can work for someone or build your own business and you get paid very well. So there are a lot of choices when you go down the path of wanting to get in accounting and do it and find a joy for yourself. Don't just do it to make money because I think that ends up in a sad place.
Sure. Yeah. I have found that anytime I frame it around like how much money can I make from whatever the venture is, it automatically like something triggers within me where I'm just like, oh, now that feels weird.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was living in Los Angeles and I was offered a job in business management. And what that means is paying the bills for the A-list movie stars.
Oh, wow.
I was
Okay.
so excited. I thought this was going to be the best job ever. It was my first time ever making 6 figures. The first thing I did was go out and buy myself a BMW. I was so excited.
But
it was at least an hour and a half commute every day. And the people I was working with, difficult. So let's just say that after the first 2 months, I looked in the mirror and I was like, what am I doing? I am miserable. I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm sitting in this beautiful, luxurious car driving along the freeway for 2 to 3 hours a day. And I've never been more miserable in my life. I quit that job after about a year. And I said to myself, money does not equal happiness. It gave me choices and it allowed me to buy the car of my dreams. But very quickly, that car did not become my dream anymore when I realized how personally miserable I was.
What made you stay there a year?
Because I'm not a quitter. I'm not a quitter. And I kept saying to myself, it's going to get better. Just talk to your manager. Just ask for different responsibilities. Maybe it's me. This is a dream job. What's wrong with me? And then when it got towards the end of the year, I was like, I can find no joy here.
Yeah. I definitely had a couple jobs, not too many, luckily, but one or two come to mind where I did leave after 3 months because I was just like this. It was just not tenable. Yeah, it was the same thing.
Right.
It was like commuting when I worked a long time doing remote work, and it was just a really big shift. I didn't realize how much I took for granted working remote. And this was before a pandemic, like this was before everybody was doing it. But I think something that you said touched on what you brought up before, which is we're not all influencers. And that wasn't something that you could just go in and major. I don't think you can major in it now, but probably someday soon. But you were talking about you can do bookkeeping and work remote. Like there are a lot of remote options that don't necessarily mean you have to be on social media doing all these, being whatever, quote unquote, an influencer, to have that jet setting lifestyle that you do see on social media. So you see all these like young, beautiful people or middle-aged, whatever. They can be any age or whatever, going around the world, traveling and doing all this cool stuff, having paid partnerships and all that stuff. You don't really even have to, you don't have to go after that route. Like you could go do this remote bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's amazing. Like there are so many jobs like that create that framework of stability to live within while being able to have
and
flexibility.
They might not sound sexy, right? So when people are scrolling through remote jobs, they don't sound sexy, but they pay the bills. And where can you find joy and make it work for you?
Yeah. And I love this bookkeeping thing is so cool because I do think that the whole college, needing to have a college degree, that can be really difficult for some people, just financially, just having access and all of that. There's so much that comes into that. So any of those types of jobs where you can really go to the community college and grab that couple courses where you can start to cultivate that skill set. And then as you go on working as a bookkeeper, you create those contacts, or whatever it is. And then you don't.
And one of the most successful people I know is my hairdresser.
Oh my gosh.
So one of the things,
did you listen to my episode with my hairdresser?
Because one of the things I talk to my daughter about is maybe you don't just go to college. Like maybe you should just go do a cosmetology certificate because let's tell you, my hairdresser, if she can't see you on a Saturday and you're like, no, she just takes a day off and I have to wait. And they make hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's hard work, but anything worth it is hard work. And it's not even about if you can do this kind of job to make this kind of money. She makes a lot of money, and find something that you love and that you're passionate about if you can, and then the money will follow.
I love that. I love that so much. And I also love that you said anything worth doing is hard work. And I think that there is a misconception that if you quote unquote love what you're doing, it's not going to feel like work.
Oh,
which is not true.
Like to me yesterday, I was like, yeah, it's still pretty hard.
There are things that you're going to have to do.
That's right.
That are going to feel like work.
We all have to have tough conversations. I have to have tough conversations. Sometimes I don't like them, but I have to do it. So yes, 100%. Not every day is easy.
Yeah. And okay, so I want to go into a little bit. You mentioned burnout. You were burning out. You were coming down on this really in this kind of time where everything was going wrong. I think a lot of people, that's a huge topic of conversation right now, burnout, right? And I see it a lot with friends and clients and all of that. So how did you climb out of that fire, and what advice would you give to somebody who feels like everything right now is going wrong?
So it's not just a one-time thing for me. This is not a one and done.
That's good to know.
Bumps, right? I've had several of those bumps in the road. I think the most important thing for me, and maybe it's this just because I'm an optimist, is not to wallow. So take a moment, have a good cry, blame whoever you want to blame, but then make a plan. and look for the options. And maybe the first choice is not the right choice. Maybe you have to pivot a little bit, but keep making changes and find a way out, because the very worst thing that any of us can do is be the victim and say, why me? This is terrible. Poor me, and sit in a puddle and nothing happens. Yeah, nothing's going to happen. You need to step up. It's like winning the lottery. You're only going to win the lottery if you actually buy a ticket.
Right.
So my ex-husband used to lie on the couch and go, if I won the lottery, I would. And I'm like, did you buy a ticket? And he's no. I'm sitting here planning how you would spend the money. So when those things happen, and they happen to all of us, I have had toothache that the doctor said to me, there's nothing wrong with your teeth. Like, it's up here from stress. We all have stuff. That's life. And so the most important thing we could do is move through it by making a choice and making a change. And as I say, sometimes the first choice is not the best choice. And then we have to pivot again and pivot again. But I feel like we're always moving. And as long as you're always moving, you're always getting better. I have friends who laugh at me and say, Wendy, are you ever done? But I don't think any of us is ever done. I don't ever want to be done. I'm always doing something different, something new, something better. And sometimes it's bad. And then I have to go, okay, that didn't work. Plan B, and move forward. But I think it's about just decide and do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things. One thing, the Nike slogan. I talk about the Nike slogan probably like too much, but I was just talking about it with actually two different friends, and separately, they both were like, it's so good. Like, just do it is so, that is like one of the best. Yeah.
It's an issue I see with a lot of people. They sit and wait. They're waiting for the perfect time, perfect financial situation, the perfect day, the perfect this, that. I want to be there is no perfect. There's never a good time to get married. There's never a good time to have kids. There's never a good time to buy a house. Now's the time, because none of us know if we have it tomorrow.
You mentioned maybe the first choice isn't the best choice. Maybe it's the second or the third. How do I frame this? Like, how do you recognize that maybe the choice you made isn't really working out? Because I think a lot of people will really go into debating the choices, finally choose one, go on that path, know it's not working, but then they're forcing it because they told everybody, and there's all this. How do you work on the backtrack, I guess I'll call it?
Right. I think you have to just define what success looks like. And so what does success look like? Is it about money? Is it about time? Is it about feeling? Is it about the scale? What does success look like? And then you can see, am I moving towards that or not? If you're not moving towards that, what looks like success to you, then I would trust my gut and say, time to pull the plug, time to do something different, time to pivot, make a change. It's true. Some people give up too easily. And some people just don't give up and just stick it out for years in a miserable job. Yeah, I remember I had one client, a husband and wife. It's very rare that I meet a couple who are both risk averse. Usually one person in the couple is a risk taker and one is not. And that's balance, right? So I'm a risk taker and my husband is not. He's very conservative. And that's usually the case because I push him and he goes, oh no, too much. But I met a couple who were both risk averse. And here they were in their 40s, both in jobs they didn't like, living in a 1-bedroom apartment. And anytime I said to them, are you going to buy a house? How about you buy a little house? How about you buy a condo? How about you change jobs? They were like, oh no, I don't know where they are today, but safe to bet they probably still live in that 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And so it's just about, I know it's scary. I'm not saying it's easy. I have plenty of sleepless nights. I eat plenty of pints of ice cream. But you have to make that change because it's after that change that the good stuff comes.
Yeah. And I want to go into that a little bit. Leaning into making those changes and feeling what's good for you. Going back to this idea that helping people really makes you happy, and you're in accounting, all of a sudden you pop up everywhere and you're doing these incredible speaking engagements for companies, and, you know, have made some news appearances, and you're very visible and you're out there teaching people in this medium. You're on podcasts a lot. When did you start to think, oh, I could do something like that and go after it?
Interesting. I think it started when people started saying to me, you don't seem like an accountant.
You don't.
like an accountant. You're too friendly. You should be out there teaching. You should be out. And I started thinking, oh, maybe I would like that. Maybe I would. And so I would dip my toe in the water and speak at a local association. And then I hired someone to help me. And I said, if I was going to be a speaker, what would I speak about? And how would I do that? And so I think it was some of that, like the world kept telling me in different ways, Wendy, you don't have to do this the way you've always done it. This doesn't have to be the way other people have always done it. That gave me the confidence to try something else. And here's the thing about being an accountant is that I could always fall back on that. Like I know that if everything goes bad, I can do bookkeeping.
Right.
I can still put food on the table. We might not live in this nice house, but we would live somewhere and we would have food on the table and we'd be okay. And so anytime I tried any of those, what other people would say crazy things like quitting my job and starting my own firm and saying no more work on Saturdays, like all the things that make most accountants go, what? Are you crazy? I've said to myself, well, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? I will go and get a job doing bookkeeping. And if people consider themselves, what's the worst that can happen? I'll go work at Starbucks. I'll go work at Home Depot. My husband and I talk about that all the time. What's the worst that can happen? And if you can see yourself across that, then take the chance.
Yeah. And I feel like the worst that could happen usually isn't as bad as we think.
Exactly. Our imaginations are so bad. And so sometimes I'll walk people through that. They'll say to me, oh, Wendy, I could never. And I'm like, okay, so it's hard. What do you mean never? So let's say that you did go and buy a 2-bedroom house and move out of that apartment. What's the worst that could happen? I don't know. We wouldn't have enough money. We wouldn't be able. Okay. So let's talk about that. What does that look like? Does it mean you sell? Does it mean maybe you eat out less? What are we talking about here? And so if we can debunk a lot of those fears, then life is different. And I am a risk taker. It's what I do. And so for me, the fear is a little intense, but I see it in my husband. When I quit my job at the business management firm and came home and said, I quit. I'm done. He was like, oh my God, we're going to be homeless. We're going to be living in a trailer in Arizona. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
And that was his immediate reaction. He didn't sleep for nights. And I said, don't worry. We'll figure this out. And so I don't mean to belittle it because I see it in him, the stress of the conservative mindset and that scarcity fear. And unfortunately, there's no magic pill to get around it other than to walk through it and surround yourself with people like me who are optimists and risk takers and will push you just that little bit to do something you otherwise would never have done.
Yeah. And I love that you started with just small, like baby steps. Oh, everyone's telling me. Also, listening to what people are telling you in a good way, just the good people who are supporting you and you know them and that you know that they have your best interest at heart. Yeah. If those people keep coming to you and they're like, you're really good at XYZ, but explore it. What's the worst that could happen, right? So you also mentioned that you hired someone after you did a couple speaking engagements. How did you come to the realization that you were like, oh, this is something that I really love doing, but maybe an outside person who is an expert in this could help me?
I think you only know what you don't know, right? There have been several points in my life where I've hired a personal coach and a speaking coach. And sometimes I didn't have the cash for it. I would put it on a credit card. So something you should know about me, I love credit cards. But I only love using credit cards when I know there's a plan to pay it off or I see the cash coming. So I don't use it for frivolous purchases that I can't afford. I used it to hire someone that I knew would help me with my career. Even if I decided not to pursue that career, that expense would save me money from making a poor choice down the road. And so there have been several cases where I've hired a coach or a consultant to help me navigate that path and give me some feedback because I only know what I know.
Yeah. Yeah. I love to hear that. I think there's a lot of power in recognizing that we are capable of learning more and that we don't know everything.
Sometimes you have to pay for the help. Friends and family are great and people want to help, but sometimes you just need an opinion. And I had a personal coach who helped me walk through my dream day. And it must have been, oh my gosh, it was right before the towers fell in New York. So it was a long time ago now. And I'll never forget her saying to me, what's your dream day? And I'd be like, well, I come to work, and she's, no, don't talk about work. What is your dream day? And we spent hours hashing out what my dream day was. And that really led me to where I am now. That's always been in the back of my mind of that's my dream day. And got to get to being able to live my dream day. And so sometimes it takes someone that doesn't know you. They don't care where you live, how you live. They just want you to be you. Whereas everyone else in our lives, they have a stake in it. And so their opinions, although they care, their opinions are a little skewed, right? Because it affects them.
Yeah. And also, I think when you have someone sitting in front of you who doesn't know all of the background stuff or doesn't have any context to you or doesn't see you through the filter of mom or through the filter of best friend or sister or whatever it is, they're coming as a blank slate to see. It's just objectivity, really, is what we're talking about. And having someone as that sounding board, as that objective sounding board can be so powerful. It can be so powerful.
Just be careful who you hire, right?
Of course. Yeah. Be careful and make sure that they're good.
They're a good fit for you. But yes, correct. I think someone who's a complete stranger, doesn't matter to them whether I wanted to join the circus and be a juggler or if I wanted to continue to be an accountant, doesn't matter to them. They just want me to find my passion, my purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. So you seem, I don't know, a born business leader. You're very charismatic. You're optimistic. You have a good head on your shoulders, clearly. And just taking a quick gander at your LinkedIn, you've owned a couple businesses and you've done consulting and independent stuff like that. Where did that kind of entrepreneurial spirit come from?
I think that was just somewhat genetic. I have to say my dad, for all his faults, my dad was born on the wrong side of the tracks, never knew his own father. And he built a business from nothing and worked very hard. And so some of it, I think, is just genetic because my sister is not at all like me. She's quiet as a mouse. She's a teacher. She just wants a job. She just wants to be left alone with her 2 kids in her house and a white picket fence. And so I think some of it is genetic. Some of it is learned. But a lot of it is just who you are and allowing who you are to grow instead of being stifled. For many years, I was told as an accountant, sit behind the desk, bill the hours, do the spreadsheets. And it was only me saying, I don't know, like that's not, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. What else is there that made me allow myself to bring who I am to the world of accounting rather than the world of accounting dictating how I ought to behave?
Yes. And I think that's the crux of everything is just figuring out how your career can fit into your life as opposed to the other way around. So I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're super busy, but I have just a quick couple like quick fire kind of questions. You mentioned ice cream. So what's your favorite flavor ice cream of the moment?
Salted caramel.
Oh, that was such a quick response.
Oh, it's a good one. There's no doubt at all.
Oh my God. Any particular brand?
My husband and I own an ice cream franchise. Don't ask me, crazy idea, not profitable, awful investment, but I do eat all the leftovers.
Okay.
It's called the Dalai Lama and the ice creams are phenomenal.
That's so funny. One of my first jobs was scooping ice cream.
Oh, see?
Yeah, my right arm was really strong and I used to eat ice cream for breakfast in the summer when I worked there.
That's exactly right because we take home the leftovers.
Oh, yeah, we could bring home whatever we wanted. It was awesome. Yep. Okay, what career advice would you give someone? What's the best career advice you've ever received?
I would say if you could balance what you want and what you need, that's where your sweet spot is. If you only go with what you want, you may not get what you need. And if you only go with what you need, then you may never get what you want and never be happy. So somewhere between want and need is your smart choice.
That's good. I like that. What is your current daily practice that you have right now and why, if you have one?
I journal every day. I know that's another thing that doesn't sound like an accountant thing to do. But I am a huge believer in manifesting and I journal every single morning with my coffee before I turn on my computer, before I let email into my world. I allow my brain to simmer and I have a vision board that is up in my office all the time. So I'm a big believer in the universe and manifesting and journaling and being the best person we can be every day. And I keep to that every day.
Yeah. Funny. I'm going to show you something that I was doing this morning. And you're going to be like, oh my God, this is my journal. And this is what I was reading. Best by Roxy Nafusi. So good.
There's so many things in our lives we can't control, and there's so many things we can't explain, that to me, those moments of focusing on what I want and what's important to me and what I value gives me a sense of control. Whether it's realistic or not, that's my sense of control and keeping my life aligned with my purpose.
So good. And last question. What is your current go-to pump-up song? I feel like you have
Roar.
a good... Yeah, I love this. I love Katy Perry. So
It
good.
used to be Let It Go, but I could never quite reach those notes. So my husband politely asked me to please stop.
That's
and now
so funny.
Roar has a little easier.
That is not an easy
those of us who
song.
are challenged.
Let It Go is the anthem of my house right now because I think I mentioned
But
to
those
you.
notes are pretty high, right?
My 3-year-old doesn't care. Yeah, I don't know if she has a career in singing. My husband seems to think she does, but we'll see. We'll see. But she ran up to me last night. She's like, do you like my singing? And I was like, yes, I love your singing.
Yes. Yeah.
So good. But Wendy, thank you so much. You are just a bright light. And thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. And if you have any CPA, accounting, qualms or issues, look up Wendy. We're going to keep all of her stuff in the show notes for you and give her a listen. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page. Thank you so much and see you next week.